The first thing I felt was fear. Not love. Not desire. Not excitement. Fear. My phone was still glowing in my hand when I heard the sound that nearly stopped my heart, the front door. Unlocked. Too early. Too sudden. Too wrong. I was standing in a hotel room that was never supposed to matter. A room that was only meant to hold a secret for one quiet night. A room I had already promised myself I would forget. And now, someone was entering it. I didn't move. I couldn't. My breath locked in my chest. The silence in that room was so loud I could hear my own heartbeat crashing in my ears. This was the moment. The moment where everything could end. The moment where lies collide with truth. The moment where betrayal either survives, or destroys everyone. Before I take you back to how this all began, do me a quick favor. If you enjoy emotional stories filled with secrets, mistakes, and shocking twists, subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it with someone who loves real lifestyle storytelling. Your support keeps these stories alive. Now let me tell you how I reached this moment. It started on a regular Tuesday. Nothing special. No warning signs. Just an ordinary morning in an ordinary house with an ordinary marriage that had slowly become too quiet. My husband left for work with a polite kiss on the cheek. I stood at the sink pretending not to notice how empty that kiss felt. I told myself that distance was normal. I told myself that silence was normal. I told myself that loneliness inside a marriage was normal. That lie was the first betrayal. Later that same day, I stopped at a coffee shop near my office. The kind of place where nobody knows your name and nobody asks questions. That's where I saw him again. Not a stranger. Not a friend. Something far more dangerous. We had met months earlier through work. Short conversations. Long looks. Too much unspoken space between words. He was easy to talk to. Too easy. He listened. When I spoke. He noticed when I went quiet. That day, our eyes met across the counter. And neither of us looked away. We didn't touch. We didn't say anything wrong. But everything felt wrong. And right. At the same time. Days turned into conversations. Conversations turned into messages. Messages turned into secrets. And secrets have a way of growing heavier the longer you carry them. I knew the exact moment I crossed the line. It wasn't when I replied to his message. It wasn't when I laughed at something I shouldn't have found funny. It was when I deleted our chat so my husband would never see it. That was the moment I chose a double life. And I didn't even realize it yet. Weeks passed. Tension grew. Curiosity thickened. Every message felt like standing too close to fire and daring myself not to burn. Then came the day he sent just one sentence. Can we talk somewhere private? I stared at that message for a long time. I should have said no. I should have blocked him. I should have gone home. Instead, I sent him the address of that hotel. And now, I was standing in that same room. With the door opening. With my heart breaking its own speed record. With the sound of footsteps approaching. This was the moment where everything would either explode. Or become a story I could never erase. The truth is, betrayal never begins with skin. It begins with attention. It began on a Tuesday afternoon I almost forgot to remember. I was standing in line at a coffee shop near downtown. My phone was dead. My mind was full. My marriage had been quiet for months, too quiet. No fights. No laughter either. Just routine. Just silence dressed as peace. Then a voice behind me said, "You look like someone carrying too much inside." I turned. That was him. Nothing special at first glance. Simple jacket. Calm eyes. Soft voice. But there was something dangerous in the way he looked at me, like he wasn't staring at my body, but at my thoughts. I forced a small laugh. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who knows the weight, he replied. That was the first lie I told myself. This is just a stranger. This is nothing. We talked for only 3 minutes. About coffee. About rain. About how tired the city felt lately. Then my drink was ready. I took it and said goodbye. I should have walked away forever. But fate is cruel when it smells weakness. When I reached my car, my phone buzzed. A message came through. Unknown number. Strangers are only strangers until they aren't. My heart dropped. I knew I should block it. I knew I should delete it. I knew I should forget him like a wrong turn in traffic. Instead, I typed. Me. How did you get my number? Him. Coffee cups have names for a reason. That was the moment the secret was born. At first, it was harmless. Just texts. Good morning messages. Random jokes. Late night check-ins. He listened in a way my husband hadn't in a long time. He remembered small things. He asked how my day felt, not just how it went. And I told myself, this isn't cheating. This is just friendship. This is just talking. But lies always sound like truth when whispered gently. 2 weeks later, he asked to meet again. Just coffee, he said. I hesitated. My wedding ring felt heavier that evening. I remember staring at it. Wrong. But emotional closeness can betray deeper than skin ever could. And then he said the sentence that changed everything. I think about you even when I shouldn't. I felt it too. That night I went home and my husband kissed my forehead, asked what we should eat for dinner, and turned on the TV. I answered him. But my heart wasn't in the room. That was how the secret started. Not with a kiss. Not with a touch. But with a door inside me slowly unlocking. And I didn't yet know that once opened, some doors never close quietly again. I used to believe that feelings were harmless. That they were just emotions you could control, like turning down the volume on a radio. But I learned the hard way that when feelings grow in silence, they grow wild. They grow teeth. And one day, they bite. By the time I realized I was in trouble, it was already too late. What started as something small, just conversations, stolen smiles, and quiet understanding, had turned into something heavy in my chest. Something I carried even when I didn't want to. Something that followed me into my marriage, into my bed, into my thoughts. And worse, he felt it too. Before I go deeper, let me pause right here and remind you, if this story is pulling you in, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps these stories alive. Now let me continue. The shift. There was a day everything changed. We were standing outside his car after work. The sky was orange and tired, like it had given up on being bright. We had been talking longer than usual. Laughing softer than usual. Then suddenly, silence. Not awkward silence. Dangerous silence. The kind that carries words no one is brave enough to say. I looked at him. He looked at me. And in that moment, I didn't see just a friend anymore. I saw possibility. Temptation. Trouble. My heart started beating faster for no reason I wanted to admit. I should go, I whispered. But I didn't move. Neither did he. That was the first time I knew. This was no longer safe. The guilt that followed me home. That night, I lay beside my husband, staring at the ceiling in the dark. His back was turned to me. The room was quiet. But my mind was loud. I hated myself for thinking about another man while lying next to the one who trusted me. The guilt felt like a stone on my chest. I promised myself. It will stop here. But promises are easy to make in the dark, and even easier to break in the daylight. When he crossed the line. A few days later, he Said the words that changed everything. I can't pretend anymore, he told me quietly as we sat inside his parked car. Rain tapped softly on the windows. I feel something for you. And I think, you feel it too. My whole body went still. The air felt heavy. I should have said no immediately. I should have opened the door. I should have walked away. Instead, I stayed silent. And silence was already an answer. He didn't touch me. He didn't lean in. But his words alone crossed a line neither of us could uncross. From that moment on, everything became dangerous. The double life of emotions. After that day, every message carried meaning. Every look lasted too long. Every conversation felt like it was hiding something illegal. I was still a wife at home. Still smiling. Still cooking. Still acting normal. But inside, I was living a second emotional life. And emotions, when hidden, don't stay small. They grow bold. The argument that exposed everything. One evening, my husband asked me a simple question. You've been distant lately. Is everything okay? His voice was calm. His eyes were searching. And instead of telling the truth, I got angry. That's the strange thing about guilt, it doesn't always make you quiet. Sometimes it makes you cruel. We argued. Loudly. He walked out of the room confused and hurt. I sat alone on the bed shaking, realizing something terrifying. My feelings for another man were already damaging my marriage, without my husband even knowing the truth. That's when fear entered the story. Real fear. The message that was too late. That night, my phone buzzed. A message from him. I think we've gone too far. But I don't know how to turn back. My hands trembled as I typed. Then maybe we shouldn't try. But even as I sent it, I knew. Trying had already happened. Stopping was the hard part. When feelings became a threat. From that moment forward, everything became risky. Risky to meet. Risky to talk. Feel. Because the heart doesn't ask for permission before it chooses. And mine had already chosen sides. If you're still here with me at this point in the story, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps this story reach others who understand how dangerous silent feelings can be. I knew the secret would catch up with me. I just did not know it would come this close to burning my whole life to the ground. That morning started like any other. The sun slipped through the blinds. My husband stood in front of the mirror fixing his tie. Calm. Trusting. Loving. Everything I was no longer sure I deserved. My phone lay silent on the dresser. Too silent. When I picked it up, my heart almost stopped. 6 missed calls. 3 unread messages. All from him. The one I was not supposed to still be talking to. My hands started shaking. My chest felt tight. I felt like the walls were closing in. I rushed into the bathroom and locked the door like a criminal hiding from the law. The last message was only one sentence. We need to talk. Your husband almost found out. The world stopped. Almost found out. Those 3 words were enough to ruin my breathing. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked normal. Calm. Married. Safe. But inside, I was a storm of fear. How the crack began. I never planned for betrayal. It started small. A conversation. A shared complaint. A smile that stayed too long. Words that became comfort. Comfort that became dangerous. I told myself I was in control. But control is always the first lie you tell yourself before everything breaks. And now, everything was shaking. The first warning. Later that evening, my husband asked me a simple question. Who is Daniel? I froze. Not inside. Not in my chest. Not in my thoughts. I froze everywhere. Who? I asked, pretending. The name that popped up on your car screen when it connected to Bluetooth, he said calmly. I forced a laugh. Oh, that? Just someone from work. He nodded slowly. Too slowly. That was when I knew. The secret had been seen. Not proven. But seen. The meeting I never wanted. That night, I met him again. Not for something romantic. Not for excitement. For survival. We sat across from each other in a quiet place where nobody paid attention. He looked different, nervous, restless. The confidence that once pulled me in was gone. He followed you, he said quietly. My stomach dropped. For how long? I whispered. Not long, he answered. But long enough to see my car. Long enough to remember my face. Silence fell between us like a heavy blanket. This was no longer a secret. It was a ticking bomb. When fear feels like love. I went home that night scared. Not excited. Not proud. Scared. Every sound in the house made me jump. Every look from my husband felt like an accusation without words. Every question felt like a trap. I started to realize something painful. I was no longer hiding a thrill. I was hiding a disaster. The night everything almost ended. It happened 3 days later. My husband stood in the living room holding my phone. Unlocked. Open. On a message I forgot to delete. He did not shout. That was the worst part. He just looked at me and asked one question. Is there something you need to tell me? My legs felt weak. My mouth opened but no words came out. In that moment, I saw every future I ever imagined break apart. Home. Family. Safety. Everything was on the edge of his voice. I could have confessed. I should have. But fear is powerful. And I lied. I told him it was a misunderstanding. That it was old. That it meant nothing. That I was tired. That work was stressful. That I loved him. He watched me for a long time. Then he said, okay. But his eyes said something else. They said, I'm no longer sure who you are. The warning I couldn't ignore. That night, I sent one last message. This has gone too far. We end this now. The reply came quickly. You can't end what already changed everything. I blocked the number. Deleted messages. Wiped history. But you can't delete fear from your heart. A quiet house, a loud guilt. My husband slept beside me that night. Peaceful. True. Peaceful. Trusting. While guilt screamed inside my chest. I stared at the ceiling and realized something I never wanted to admit. The betrayal did not go wrong because he almost found out. It went wrong because I almost lost everything that actually mattered. By the time obsession truly showed its face, it was already too late. I thought I was in control. I thought I was careful. I thought lies were strong enough to carry my secrets forever. I was wrong. It always starts quietly. No shouting. No warning. Just a feeling. A feeling that something is watching you. That night, I stood in my kitchen alone, staring at my phone. His name was still saved there, glowing like a temptation I had failed to delete. My hands were shaking. The messages had stopped coming. No good morning. No excuses. No secret check-ins. Silence. For the first time since everything began, he was quiet, and that scared me more than anything else. I whispered to myself. It's over. But even as I said it, my heart didn't believe me. The first crack. Obsession doesn't kick down the door. It walks in smiling. The next day, I saw a car I didn't recognize parked across from my house. I told myself it was nothing. Later that evening, I received a message from an unknown number. "I see you." That was all it said. No name. No explanation. Just the truth I had been running from. Fear traveled through me in waves. I felt like my walls had disappeared. Every secret I buried suddenly felt exposed. That night, I slept with the lights on. The call that shattered everything. 2 days later, my husband came home early. That never happened. His face was stiff. Quiet. Controlled. And that silence was louder than any scream. "Someone called me today," he said calmly. My heart stopped. "They didn't say much," he continued. "But they said enough to make me start asking questions." I wanted to speak. I wanted to lie. I wanted to run. Instead, I just sat there, frozen inside my own body. He studied my face like he had never seen it before. "Is there anything you want to tell me?" he asked. That was the moment. The moment where every lie I ever told stood behind me in a long line, waiting to be exposed. But I didn't confess. Other in a quiet place where nobody paid attention. He looked different, nervous, restless. The confidence that once pulled me in was gone. "He followed you," he said quietly. My stomach dropped. "For how long?" I whispered. "Not long," he answered. "But long enough to see my car. Long enough to remember my face." Silence fell between us like a heavy blanket. This was no longer a secret. It was a ticking bomb. When fear feels like love. I went home that night scared. Not excited. Not proud. Scared. Every sound in the house made me jump. Every look from my husband felt like an accusation without words. Every question felt like a trap. I started to realize something painful. I was no longer hiding a thrill. I was hiding a disaster. The night everything almost ended. It happened 3 days later. My husband stood in the living room holding my phone. Unlocked. Open. On a message I forgot to delete. He did not shout. That was the worst part. He just looked at me and asked one question. "Is there something you need to tell me?" My legs felt weak. My mouth opened but no words came out. In that moment, I saw every future I ever imagined break apart. Home. Family. Safety. Everything was on the edge of his voice. I could have confessed. I should have. But fear is powerful. And I lied. I told him it was a misunderstanding. That it was old. That it meant nothing. That I was tired. That work was stressful. That I loved him. He watched me for a long time. Then he said, "Okay." But his eyes said something else. They said, "I'm no longer sure who you are." The warning I couldn't ignore. That night, I sent one last message. "This has gone too far. We end this now." The reply came quickly. "You can't end what already changed everything." I blocked the number. Deleted messages. Wiped history. But you can't delete fear from your heart. A quiet house, a loud guilt. My husband slept beside me that night. Peaceful. True. Never undo. By who I almost became. And if you've listened this far, then you already know. Betrayal is never just between two people. It spreads. It stains. It waits. Final call to my listeners. If this story shook you, even a little, like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear the truth behind temptation. Subscribe for more real confessions that don't hide behind fantasy. Because some stories are not meant to excite. They are meant to warn.